Selamat sejahtera dan selamat sepupu. As you know, that line was in Malay. Such a wonderful language, such a beautiful language. Yet, somehow or another, I just can't shake this feeling that it's going to die. So poops, I don't hate the Malay language. I was born in Malaysia, I grew up in Malaysia, I spoke Malay from SJKC up to SMK, got an A+ for SPM. I don't speak it on an everyday basis, but I know that it's the national language, and I have respect for that fact. But from what I'm looking at and seeing in this country today, I can't help but think to myself that if things continue the way that they are, this entire language is gonna die. Sure, it's true. Go into parliament or go to any government department and you're gonna see people speaking in Malay, expecting you to speak in Malay. But peel away the surface and you'll see something very different. In the GLCs with CEOs, with the different people out there, you will notice that KL is very English dominant.
There are obviously parts of Malaysia where people only speak Malay, but I think this analysis still applies.
Malaysian companies operate in English mostly, with a smattering of firms that have Mandarin speaker-only positions. But frankly, I think that those are only surface level things. I think that when I say that the Malay language is dying, I'm referring more to just this state or condition of Malaysian society whereby over time, the way our society is progressing, eventually it will cause people to stop using it entirely and altogether. Here are 5 reasons why I think the Malay language is going to die. Reason number 1, our toxic Malaysian culture. So poops, I know we're very good at badminton. What a shame corruption is not an Olympic sport, otherwise we would have won hundreds of gold medals by now. But one thing we are also good at is criticizing people. And I experienced that personally when I tried to speak Malay on Yang Berhenti Menteri. You speak in English, people ask you to speak in Malay. You speak in Malay, then people ask you to speak properly. When you use good vocabulary, but you have speech tics, then they will immediately crucify you from every single angle, declaring that, oh, if you don't speak perfect Malay, then you don't deserve to be speaking, and they can insult you however much and say you don't deserve to be called a Malaysian. Now, I'm fine, but can you imagine that people want to learn Malay if they will just get abused left, right, front and center? Whether they speak Malay or they don't speak Malay, have their nationality and their loyalty to the country questioned the moment they try to speak Malay? Is it a very good draw to learn the Malay language? Yeah, didn't think so. Yet, this brings us nicely to the second reason, which is entitlement. See, especially when you are making content publicly and you happen to be a Malaysian, right? If you don't speak Malay, then people will shame you. They'll be all, kenapa tak cakap bahasa Melayu? Sebagai orang Malaysia, kena ada jati diri. Beating their chest to act like they are so terpaling nasional, while expecting that everybody out there must ikut and then showcase mastery in Malay. I mean, I know Indonesia, Japan, China, Korea, Germany use and keep on using their native language. In fact, the whole world learns their languages. But usually they have an interesting culture or aspect of their society, whether it's economic, anime, K-pop, freaking German sausages, if you care about that. So people just kind of like automatically learn the language. And when I look at all these people who are just acting in this entitled way, I just have to ask, right? Like, what is the basis of your entitlement? Why do you feel that everybody should all want to talk to you in Malay? Like, do you deserve it? Are you worth my making the choice to purposefully communicate with you in Malay? Reason number 3, the education system. Malaysia's education system teaches people how to write surat rasmi, tidak rasmi, and karangans one after another. But it does not teach you how to speak Malay in the way that most Malaysians accept. Which you can say is either a problem of the education system or the fact that our culture only accepts certain forms of Malay, which brings me directly into reason number 4, hypocrisy. If you go on TikTok right now and you look for all the Malay speakers, you will see that all of the Malay there is koyak, rabat, completely broken. Tak boleh becomes X boleh, and then later on X le and XLH as part of this evolution from monkey to man, except maybe going in reverse. And there you see it, right? The ocean of TikTok Malay, Malay Shopee live sellers, and the torrent of people saying, orang Malaysia tak cakap bahasa Melayu, mana jati diri, mana? All the people who are telling you to speak better Malay are not even good at speaking Malay themselves, and in some cases they're actually worse, going out with their moral superiority saying that you must have jati diri even as they destroy their own language. Now I think that human beings, we have a sort of natural instinct that pushes us away from hypocrisy, and I think that's basically what's happening. Add that on to the fact that nowadays, especially in the Klang Valley, so many people just speak English all the while and even find trouble in getting their kids to speak Malay while they, by the way, continue to send their kids to international schools where they don't speak Malay, whenever they become rich, and you can see the problem not just existing, but compounding. And this brings me to the last reason. The point of language is to communicate. And in Malaysia, if you're dealing with commerce or money or business, usually you have no actual need to communicate in Malay. See, the whole point of using a language is for communication, and we use languages for different purposes based on which audience we want to target. So, for example, if I want to sell to the widest possible audience and I know that most people speak Malay, it makes sense for me to speak in Malay. If I have friends who mostly only speak in Malay, then naturally I'm going to adapt my speech or language so that I speak in Malay. But see, flip that around and you can see how things immediately change. If I know that everybody that I'm selling to or that I'm working with is able to speak English and my Malay is not great, I don't want to be judged, skewered, or persecuted just because my Malay is not perfect like that of a native speaker's, then I can use English, no problem. And I might also use English because I have no wish to communicate with all the toxic people who are insisting that I use Malay and then choosing to bully me in the event that I don't speak it perfectly. Add this all together and you can see how, if the country can function in English anyway, then there's an open question, right? Like, do I need to speak in Malay? And is there a very clear and conclusive reason why I have to speak it that's related to my jati diri, even as people persecute and skewer me for not speaking the Malay language properly when I'm just learning, declaring it is the so-called Marwah Negara while demonstrating no respect for their fellow citizens? To wrap this all up, once again let me say that I think that Malay is a nice and a beautiful language.
But then,
For all the reasons I mentioned earlier, I think it is going to die a slow death. When people are toxic to you, expect you to use the language even when they add no value, the education system doesn't teach you how to speak it, people are hypocrites, and anyway the country functions perfectly well in English anyway, you're naturally going to get a situation where people only use Malay because they are forced to, for example at formal functions, government events, or otherwise, but in almost every other situation, people are just going to go out and avoid it. And it doesn't matter how many times you have a bulan bahasa or anything out there, if you don't have a good reason for people to want to learn the language, and there's no need to learn the Malay language, because everybody can, as they should, function perfectly well in English.
and by the way, people only bully you and don't actually encourage you or value your efforts to speak Malay.
I guess it would be a different story if I saw a ton of people out there who can only speak in Malay that I would give my life and soul to speak with them or work with them, to learn about them while using Malay. But I don't see anybody out there like that, or who deserves that sort of engagement from our community. And I think that if we keep on holding this arrogance about how we want people to speak the national language, but we somehow don't end up providing value to people, or at least have the manners to appreciate when other people are trying to speak the language, I think that slowly but surely, whether you and I like it or not, the Malay language is going to die. But I want to know what you think, Sapoops. Do you think the Malay language is going to die? Or do you think it's somehow going to rise from the ashes like a phoenix, and we're gonna have a wonderful new memartabatkan bahasa Melayu era? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Alright, that's all to say about that, and bye.